Welcome back to Mentally a Badass, and here we are, season 3. If you are a returning listener, thanks for staying around. If you're new, hi, I'm Justine. We're going to be talking about mental health here, and I interview a bunch of badasses. So, in today's first episode, we are going to be chatting with Alana, who is a social worker. I feel this episode is very, very important due to current events of women losing their rights. So she's going to talk about the reality of what currently goes on in our foster care system. So I recommend having an open ear while listening to this, and I hope you guys enjoy. Hey y'all, welcome back to Mentally a Badass. My name is Justine and I have Alana with me. She is a social worker and she so gracefully came over today to talk about how it is being a social worker, and she's also going to discuss on why she is a social worker. I heard her story and I think it's super dope. That's how I'm going to put it.
I love it.
Because that's just dope. My brand. Yeah, it is dope. So, welcome to my show, and thanks for driving 45 minutes to come see me.
Of course.
Okay, so let's dive into your story whenever you're ready, girl.
All right. So, I got interested in working in foster kids. It started as a young kid myself. So, I was never a foster kid or anything like that, but I did grow up as an only child. And unlike most people who have siblings and everything, I would have loved to have siblings, at least a brother or sister. When I was in kindergarten, I wrote this really long thing, surprisingly, about how I wish I had a brother or sister. And one day, my mom told me why she was not able to have another child after me. And it was like a big reason was because that I have type 1 diabetes. I've had it since I was 1. And, you know, diabetes is expensive. And also, my mom didn't want to risk another child having to deal with what I had to go through and the struggle that she had to go through, learning about diabetes and being able to take care of me so that I could live a healthy life. So she actually told me when I was 10 that she was interested in adopting kids, or maybe adopting a brother or sister for me. And she told me a little bit about the foster care system and, you know, what the process of adoption would be. And I was super excited, but unfortunately my dad was not interested in us adopting because I guess foster kids have behavioral issues and stuff like that. So that never really worked out. But it grew as a passion for me and interest over time, in, like the foster care system itself and foster kids. And when I got into like maybe late middle school, high school, I was really interested in psychology. I took psychology classes. I went to college to do psychology. And throughout my journey, I've learned over time that, you know, I can make a difference in the foster care system. I can use my psychology degree, and I can also get into social work to become a therapist for foster kids. I can help foster kids be a part of a family or have a family that they never had. I really wanted to be a part of that. So I went through the schooling, I did the internships, I did the volunteer work and everything, and grew my passion into a career. Right now, what I'm doing now is I provide therapy to foster kids to help them be able to function better in the community, because the foster kids that I work with, they have a lot of severe behavioral issues and everything. Pretty much what my dad had said when I was a kid about them, but they have so much potential, I see. And I, with the skills that I teach them through my work and everything, teaching them to be a better part of the community, being able to communicate with others. I have helped foster kids be able to either reintegrate with a biological family or be able to be better suited for adoption. And that's pretty much in a nutshell what I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in regards to like age, is it like all ages that you work with?
Pretty much. So the youngest that I'm working with right now is age 8. The place that I work at, we take kids as young as 5, I believe. And then our oldest is 17. My current age group I'm working with right now is between the ages of 8 and 14.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I do know that in regards to like behavioral, usually I think that's people more talk about like in regards to like teenagers and such. So you said could you told me like off like mic here, which we're gonna bring onto the mic, that you have seen some like behavior issues and challenges. Whatever you can bring up, that would be appreciated. Of course, I don't know what you can or allowed to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to hear more about it, like how it is like a day in the life of what you do.
Definitely. So I'm currently working at an inpatient facility. I can't give extensive details.
Yeah, of course. We don't want to put names out there.
Right. Yeah, definitely. But like I'm working with kids who have gone through the worst of the worst. And despite them going through the worst of the worst, I've seen great potential in them and they have been able to succeed. So when they first come into our facility, they have been through, a lot of them have been through a lot of foster placements. They've repeatedly been abused. They've gone through neglect. First, they were abused by their biological family, and then they have to go through it again in the foster care system, which is terrible.
It's horrible. I feel so bad for that.
Yeah, it's awful. And, like, they've just had, like, failure after failure. And, since a lot of things that are going on in their lives have failed them, like, they have not been able to develop, like, our average child can.
Yeah.
They didn't receive the love and care that many other families' children are able to receive. So they've gone through a lot, and then when with the lack of social skills and poor development and all of that, based off of all of that abuse and neglect, they're getting Baker Acted, and like which Baker Act is like they have like a mental breakdown, like either
Baker Act? Yeah, I do know that's like I heard about that.
Yeah, so like they're like aggressive or they're suicidal and stuff like that, and they have to be hospitalized for a few days, stuff like that. So that repeatedly has to happen for them, and they go to other like intensive outpatient facilities or places where they receive therapy, and it just doesn't work. It's just the therapy that they're receiving that's not as intensive as what we provide where at my job. It's just not enough for them. So that's how they end up where I'm working. They have severe aggression, like they bite, they kick, they spit, all of that.
Yeah, and that's just like their defense mechanism.
Yeah, that's all they know.
Yeah, it's truly upsetting. Like if you go through life just constantly being abused and mistreated, you just assume like everyone is gonna do that to you.
Exactly.
And then when they feel any type of threat, then like they're gonna do the biting, and then people are gonna look at them and be like, oh my gosh, they're like a bunch of animals, and think so negatively about them and just not want to deal with them, which just really, it really sucks because it's like it's not their fault. Like kids are born and they're born innocent. Like they're not born like that. They're not born out there just like biting people or anything like that. Like it all happened for a reason, and it's just sad how society doesn't understand that. And majority of society never understands that. They just look at them like, oh, they're bad kids, or oh, they're bad influences. And there's like not that many people out there that instead of looking at them and be like, oh, they're such a problem child, and like just kind of like push them to the side. They don't look at that kid and think, oh my God, they probably went through hell.
Exactly. And that's how they end up at our place. Like so many people have given up on them or not understood the root of their trauma. They learn to behave the way they do. Like they learned from abusive families and stuff like that. And it's really sad. So I'm happy to have them come in and be able to work with me, because it's like it's very refreshing, because I have the ability to teach them what is acceptable, what is love, you know, what is care, and what they deserve, and stuff like that. And a lot of times this anger that's being presented and stuff, it's really depression. That's
part of it. It's like when you're depressed, you get very like angry. That's part of it.
Yeah, like depression, anxiety, all of that. Those are the primary things that are going on, and it's just showing up as anger towards other people. So, like, just teaching them that they do deserve love. They do deserve a family that cares about them. I feel like they learn through the process of being able to work with me for the few months that they have to stay there, that they are able to achieve things in life. They're able to do well in school, which some of them have made great improvements in school, like just building their self-esteem and confidence and helping them understand that they do deserve love. It helps them do better in school. It helps them look forward to going into a better foster home once they leave, or reintegrating back into their biological family if that is an option, you know. That's pretty much it. Like, just they usually stay for 6 to 9 months, and that's probably not enough time, but it's a good amount of time to teach them.
And at least them kind of like, I feel like it's good for them to like learn the basics.
Yeah.
And then, because you can't really fully change in like 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
So I just feel it's kind of like in a way like a training, and you just kind of like learn as you go. It's kind of like, you know, getting that opportunity of that stepping stool, get a base of what you know, like changing the way your mindset is and healing from all your trauma. And then it gives you those tools where you're getting those tools, and then you're learning it, and then you're going to be put out to, you know, incorporate those tools into real life. So, so just make sure I understand. So when they come to like your job, is that, so they're in the foster system, and then they go into that the inpatient, and they go to you. I'm sorry to make sure I understand the roadmap here.
Yeah. So so it really depends on the child's story, because every child's story is different. So some kids, they have biological parents, and they're coming from their biological parents, but they has so many behavioral issues that their parents they essentially got into the foster care system, and the goal is to reunify them back with the parents. And with those parents, I do parent coaching. I teach them better ways to parent.
They need that. I was actually going to talk to you about that, like if that's a thing, because you know, we need to be there for the kids, but also like the parents too.
Yeah because the whole family is a system, and everybody needs to be working together, and you know, everybody deserves a loving family and home, and where everybody understands each other and is able to communicate. And a lot of where things fall apart is where the communication falls off the rails. So I do parent coaching with those parents, where those kids are able to go back to those parents, or maybe their grandparents or something like that. Teaching them better ways to compromise and stuff like that, and being able to manage their child when the child is angry or upset, or their feelings are hurt and stuff. Like, for example, there's this one kid I'm trying to reunify with his grandparents, and I'm teaching them to give him space when he's upset. Don't hover over him, because that's where a lot of his aggression was lying, because they were hovering over him, or like, I guess for lack of better wording, nagging. So I'm teaching them to respect his space, and like other options of being able to help him be a part of the family, such as having family nights, or having family talks once a week and stuff like that.
Yeah, like family meetings?
Yeah, family meetings. And then there's other kids who, like, they're completely removed from biological family. Like, I'm trying to set them up with adoptive homes. And those kids, like, their parents' rights are terminated. Like, these parents have done horrible things, and they cannot have access to this child, which for a lot of times it's better that way.
Yeah.
So I help the child be able to trust families again, because a lot of times kids who are that far removed from family, they don't trust people, they don't trust families. They sometimes they want to go about it on their own, and or some kids, they want to go back to their biological family even though that's not an option. I have one kid where when he first came to me, he wanted to go back with biological family, and I have to break it to them and help them understand, because no one in the system had really explained to them that that's not an option, because these people were not safe for you. They didn't treat you right, and you deserve safety and love and stuff like that. And these people, they were not able to provide that for you. Let's work towards finding a family that can provide you a healthy, safe environment. And that kid has made great changes since I've been working with him. He's actually more motivated to go into a new foster home and potentially get adopted. He's not looking back at the past.
Which anymore. Is good. Yeah, because usually kids just naturally, if that's like your mother and father, you automatically want to go back to them despite of like what they've done to you, but they don't understand that what they are doing to you, that's not normal.
Exactly.
Like if a parent is like hitting you and this and that, you don't know better, you just think that's life, like that's how life is supposed to be. But then you gotta they have to understand that like that's not how it's supposed to be. It's gonna cause more issues down the road, and it's actually just truly sad. That's why I hate when people get pregnant and bring kids into the world when they're just clearly not ready for it. You know what I mean? Like if you have your own like issues and such like that, like you need to work on yourself first before you bring another human being into this world. But that's another conversation, that my feelings about that, about the people who don't believe in condoms. Anyway, that's another story.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, so I was also gonna ask, I had like all these questions in my head, I'm just trying to like remember what I was gonna ask you. So what are your thoughts, like how the foster care system is set up, at least in the state that we live in, that I won't put on here?
There's, for some kids, it's working out great for them, and then others, it's just, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Because, like the one child I was just telling you about, who I got him more focused on going towards an adoptive family, his parents' rights were terminated for the right reasons, and, that's good. That's healthy it's healthy to break that relationship if it's toxic,
Yeah, of course.
But there's some kids with parents who are clearly dangerous, who do not do the right things and stuff like that. They're not receptive to parent coaching or stuff, or they're not getting the help that they need for themselves to better take care of their children, like such as their own mental health help and taking their medications and stuff like that. And their rights are not terminated, like they still have access to these kids, and these kids go back to
do things like that if they were to misbehave but yeah, I mean the majority of the show is like when her name is Callie, is the main character, so basically what it was is that her foster care parent was like abusing her little brother, so they were both in the same house, and so in reaction she like slammed like had a bat and like slammed his car so he can stop, and that's just how you react to protect your brother. But of course, like the authorities didn't look at it like that. They look at her as like, oh, she's just like this foster child who clearly has who clearly like has behavioral issues. And what they did, they put her in juvie. They put her in juvie, and then she got beat up in juvie. So then this other person who was like a foster care parent, which is like one of the main characters, took her in, and they were going to keep her for like a couple of days just to get her out of that situation because she got beat up in juvie. And then she automatically was like having like kind of being rude to them and this and that, because she's been through like I think 7 foster homes, like so many of them, and she's been like abused. She's been like, she talks more down the road that she was raped by a brother, and like it was this whole thing, and she was constantly being mistreated. So automatically she was already like giving them attitude and being that, and then she like went to like, her brother was still in that other like house with that foster dad, so she like ran away and tried to find him, and then of course like they found her or whatever, they got like united. And so basically those 2 foster care parents took them in, who has like basically all their kids are all foster kids besides 1. And so like that's like literally, I think it's just funny how like they named the show, and their last name in the show is Foster. I just don't understand that, like, who thought it, like, it's kind of corny, but okay. So pretty much, and then it just kind of shows the development and how she went from being that foster kid that was seen as like having behavioral issues and causing problems, and showing how when she's provided like the right love and a good family that wouldn't abuse her and gave her everything that she deserves, like she is now a functioning amazing human being in society. She's actually a really smart girl, and now like there's a spinoff called it's called Good Trouble, and she's a lawyer in it.
Oh,
so
that sounds cool. It
shows how like she started there, and then it developed into her being like a lawyer, and she studied going into that because she wanted to make a better system, because the system has failed her so many times, and as she's seen it fail so many other kids, like there was like a kid that like committed suicide. No, he didn't commit suicide. I think the foster parent killed him, something like that. It was crazy. It was insane. It was such a sad episode. Yeah. But basically, she's the kind of person where she like fights for the rights, and even like in her foster mom, one of the moms is a cop, so that also they added her being a cop in there, and then and then also the other mother was a school vice principal. So like it was pretty good occupations that they both had to put in the storyline. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a really good show, and like the spinoff is still going on. The Fosters is obviously not anymore because it's a spinoff. And it's pretty much like after the spinoff, like she moves to LA with her foster sister, and the foster just like does like engineering, and then she does lawyers, and yeah, that's a whole other thing. But it just pretty much just shows how like you can be just as functioning a person in society than someone who wasn't going through the foster care system. And it's like if you are given the right resources and put with a loving family, like there's hope for you. And she was, I think, like 15 when she found, or maybe no 16 when she found that family. So she was like peak like high school. Yeah. And I was like I watch like movies and this and that. It does definitely intrigue me. It truly does. And I just like, honestly, I told you, I've never been a foster kid. I've never had that kind of experience. But it just like, but also I'm a huge mental health advocate. And like a lot of the foster care kids do struggle with their mental health because they're being abused and they're being mistreated. And like, I can't even imagine like going through like being mistreated like that and not having that sense of home, because every human being wants to feel that security. Like that's just a common human being like desire, is to have security and to feel love. Even if people say like fuck love, they don't mean that. They're saying that as like a defense mechanism because they've been screwed over. So anyways, that's fuck love. They just mean like, I'm sad. That was the best way of explaining it.
Well, one thing I want to say, like you mentioned how some like the kid, like one of the kids in the fosters got sent to JDC and everything. Mm-hmm. So that happens to a lot of the kids that come into our program too. Like a lot of them have been in JDC and stuff like that, and it's a shame because you're pretty much sending the message that I'm a foster kid, I'm bad, and like I'm going to jail and nothing comes out of it because they don't really get.
There's really no point of it. It's like you don't.
The root of the trauma isn't fixed or anything like that. It's just like a Band-Aid.
Go on and on about our justice system too.
Yeah. It's just awful.
Our justice system is, I just feel like if the justice system could kind of switched away, as in when someone does something bad, instead of like punishing them, like try to give them resources to find out why they're doing what they're doing. You know, like they're not just doing things for shits and giggles, obviously. Yeah. I mean, obviously if you're out there killing people, that's a different story. Like you do have to lock them up, obviously. But I just feel like we can focus more on trying to figure out like why they're doing what they're doing. I mean, honestly, if the people are killing people, I don't know for sure I really want them on the streets again, but I don't know. But every case is different. I'm not really too knowledgeable about that. But for example, let's say someone goes to jail for smoking weed, like, you know, that stuff happens, like smoking weed or like dealing weed or things like that, like people will go to jail for and be locked up for. I don't know. I don't really agree with that. I feel like that's just kind of a little intense, and I just don't feel like it helps the situation. Yeah. And I just feel like, I'm trying to think of another thing. Domestic violence. Let's say that. Obviously, I feel like obviously they need to be locked up, but not in a way of like being punished.
Like they need resources. They need insight into what they do.
Exactly. Like I feel like they need, because sometimes when people do these things, you never know. They may not even know what's really right and wrong. Even though I know, like, to us it's common sense that obviously you shouldn't beat people. But a lot of people who do domestic violence are usually people who are like really messed up, like who really need that help.
Yeah, like they learn that as a child. So like maybe they came from a family who had like the father or mother, whoever, abused the partner and everything. They see that growing up. They think that's okay. They think that is affection and love. So they repeat it for their own family. And it's like an intergenerational cycle of abuse.
Yeah. Essentially. And that's how it is. Like exactly what you're saying. So they're going to jail. Like, I mean, I don't know how it works or how long they go to jail for or whatever, but I mean, like, let's say they go to jail for, like, I don't know, 50, bear with me, I don't know. 15,
kids usually 20. Go to jail for, like, 21 days or less.
For kids? Well, if they were to do what, like, hit somebody?
Hit somebody, like, any charge that they would get, it's usually 21 days.
Yeah, and then it's like, what happens during those 21 days? They just sit in, like, what do they do? Like, just sit in a cell and clean stuff? Like, I don't
eat nasty food. Yeah, I think they just hang out there pretty much. Like,
that's so stupid. I don't for them.
I don't work for JDC, but, like, I'm thinking, like, I don't think they're getting the full, like,
doesn't do anything.
Array of services that they need in those 21 days.
Yeah, and it's like also like in school when people get detention, for example. Yeah. I actually saw something a while back where there was a school, instead of putting kids in detention, they were like forced to take meditation classes.
Oh. Okay.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that because a lot of kids who act up, something's going on at home, or they're stressed out, or they have anxiety or whatever. Like there's a lot going on. So meditating is super healthy for your mental health, and then meditation helps you like figure out what is really going through your mind. Mm-hmm. So like being mindful of what is like actually making you act a certain way, and learning that versus just like you're bad, you're gonna sit there and look at a wall.
Yeah, it's basically mindfulness training, essentially, like helping you focus on the present and, you know, seeing things for how they are in the moment and everything, and trying to figure things out that way.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know what book I was reading. Maybe it was this book I was reading about like mindfulness, and it was pretty much saying that like literally like probably 90% of our society are not mindful. Yeah. Because honestly, I'm an extremely mindful person. And just because I've learned that, I don't know when I started learning that, but it's just being given those resources. Like I've been reading books and just having access to people who do that. And when you find those people, and like for me, like my life in New Jersey, I don't know, did I tell you from New Jersey?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I grew up in New Jersey, and that world is so different than the world here.
Yeah.
So I just felt like I was a completely different human being over there. And I feel like mindfulness wasn't really that big over there. We're kind of like, New Jersey is, I'm not going to say I grew up rough, but I did technically grow up in the suburbs, but a lot of my friend group and stuff were more like urban. And then like I've been very, you know, lucky. I grew up in middle class, but I've had friends who grew up like in poverty. And so I also live right by New York City too, so I've seen things. So yeah, you'd be walking in New York City, you just hear a random person scream, and be like, okay, keep going.
Yeah.
Like it's just you see things. You know what's funny? My roommate actually, she told me, she's like, you look like somebody that someone doesn't want to mess with, and I was like, do I really? And then she was like, yeah, it looks like you've seen things. And I was laughing so hard. I'm like, well, you're right. And then at some time, I'm like, you know what's funny is that when I grew up in New Jersey, people looked at me at like this like little innocent girl who couldn't like, you know, take care of herself or whatever, right? But it's like, it's complete opposite. Like, honestly, I'm a very like, I do have tough skin. And, you know, I know we're just like getting to know each other right now, but I'm the kind of person, I'm like a really sweet girl. I'm very loyal. I'm kind to people who are kind to me, but if you mess with me, I'll mess. And no, I'm serious. It's kind of like, I'm the nicest, kindest person you'll meet, but if you cross me, you do not want to cross me.
Yeah.
So that's just the kind of person I am. And I actually did have a previous roommate where she did cross me, and I think that's what the other roommate said that. I mean, I didn't do anything like beat her or anything like that, but let's just say I got my money. I got the money that she was supposed to give me.
Well, that could be good in some ways too.
As I say, let's just say that she owed me money, and I got my money.
At least you got your money back without killing anybody.
Yes,
so.
yeah. I find my own ways, but that's so funny. I just threw out I swear, I didn't like touch anybody, but I got my money. That's what matters.
Yeah.
It was more of just like, she thought she could move out without paying like the electric and like the utilities that were under my name. It was like that kind of situation. So I just made sure that she gave it back to me.
Yeah, she can't manipulate you.
Oh yeah, like that's what I told him. Like you just don't like.
Yeah.
No. I was like, don't. When it comes to money, you're not gonna mess with me. I'm getting my money. So I pick my battles. I'm the kind of person where it's like, you know, obviously throughout the day things annoy us. Mm-hmm. Things kind of like, ugh, like this person annoying me or this and that. But I literally choose my battles.
Yeah.
I choose them. And that was a battle that I chose. And I won. Oh, this is like totally irrelevant to what we're talking about, but it's actually kind of a funny story.
Yeah.
I just won't go into details, but I swear I'm really not that bad. I'll tell you the story later. So, how do you get kids out of the facility?
So, as they like work with me over time and everything, they learn the skills. I'm basically planting seeds for them because they're not going to be 100% when they leave.
Of course.
You know, they're not going to be a completely changed person or child. But I plant the seeds for them to have better communication skills, be able to interact with people better, be more motivated to work well with the family or wherever they end up going. Towards the end of their stay there, I try to connect them with the best services that I can possible because I do want them to continue being successful after they leave the facility and everything. I don't want them to, you know, succeed where they're at and then when they discharge, completely flop. You know, I want them to continue progressing over time. So I help set them up with intensive services. I always recommend intensive outpatient services wherever they go. So lots of therapy each week. If there's a family involved, family therapy, medication management, all of that stuff. I also try to, sometimes I help kids stay longer so that they can be, they can go to the best place possible. So, for example, I have this one kid who's supposed to be reunited with a grandparent. He has not been with this grandparent for a while now because lots of crazy circumstances in the foster care system that go on. So anyways, there's a process for this grandmother to be able to get him back. And, you know, there's this, I guess, like with our facility, we work with insurance companies and insurance doesn't always agree with my recommendations for best practice for kids sometimes. So there was an issue regarding insurance about him being able to stay, and because he had made tremendous progress there, but I didn't want him to go to a group home, for example, when there's a plan for him to go with his grandmother, who is a stable, good support for him. So I worked really hard being able to keep this kid here, continue working on himself and his anger and stuff like that while this process is going through for grandma, so that he can just go on a plane home to grandmother instead of going back into the foster care system, regressing in his treatment, and having to end up at a place like where I work again, you know?
Yeah, it's just kind of like you're having great progress, and you put him back, and then it's like, let's do this again.
Yeah. That's a common occurrence for a lot of kids who do come to our inpatient facility, but like I like to try the best that I can to make it practice where is the permanent goal? Like what is the best permanent goal for them? And I try to fight and work towards that instead of, having them fall into the system again.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for being on here, Elena.
Thank you for having me, Justine.
We have a little inside story about our names. But yeah, I appreciate you being on here. So if you listened all the way this far, appreciate you. So yeah, definitely if you are listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please give me a rating. It really helps me grow organically. And follow me on my social media. I have all of the links and all that good stuff in the description. And stay tuned for next episode.